Welcome everyone on the Rants About Humanity podcast. Today I got an ultimate biohacker on the podcast, Siim Land. Siim Land is an author, speaker, and biohacker from Estonia. He has written many best-selling books like Metabolic Autophagy, Stronger by Stress, and The Immunity Fix, and also posting a lot of things about getting better sleep and maybe also about waking up. Welcome on the podcast, Siim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and glad to be here.
You studied anthropology, right?
Yeah, in university.
How do you look at the state of the world and the state of humans at the moment with everything that's going on in the crazy year 2022, 2020, 2021?
Well, I think, it's a very interesting time to be alive. And I think it's just, it's these kinds of things, crises and pandemics or different natural disasters. They're really natural parts of existence, or especially human life as well. And they happen all the time, basically over the course of history. It's just that we tend to maybe pay more attention to them because of technology or something. But these things aren't unnatural. They're not deviant. They're actually quite normal. And I think a lot of the time we just tend to overreact ourselves to whatever maybe, and we kind of hyper focus on things.
Yeah, I'm just curious about biohacking. It's kind of like using your own body, wisdom of the body, food is thy medicine, ancient old wisdom, by boosting your immune system. I don't see a lot of being stressed on boosting your immune system right now. How are you looking at this as an anthropologist and someone who's into biohacking?
It's I think it's like a lot of these, let's say, legislations and or legislative organizations and governments. They don't want to maybe take the responsibility for the if things go wrong. So they don't want to. They're not going to recommend something that isn't guaranteed to work. Of course, taking care of your immune system is very important, and they do say that you should do it to a certain extent. But they don't emphasize it, or they don't put any assurance on it, because they aren't, or they're afraid of messing things up or something. So that's why they're kind of trying to hope for some vaccines or something, because they think that it's going to be more effective and it's going to provide more long-term solutions. But we don't have the vaccine for the common flu, and we don't have vaccines for most of these similar infections like influenza or something. And even the Spanish flu, we don't have a vaccine for that either, although that's been around, or that has been known about for over 100 years. So I think they're just afraid of taking responsibility for their mistakes, and they don't want the people to come out with the pitchforks, basically.
Yeah, and I read about I don't know how many people died with the Spanish flu, maybe 40 million or something in Europe, but the population was a lot less. Black plague, 1 in 3 people. No matter what you think about what's going on, it seems a bit of an overreaction when you look at how many people actually get killed by it historically, right? When you take a look at the Black Plague and other plagues, Spanish flu, even other flus. What is your opinion why the reaction now is completely different than, let's say, in the past with other viruses and big plagues?
Well, depends on how you look at it. It can be said that the world is more interconnected now, so the kind of potential to spread much faster is greater. So that's why it did get from China to New York and Europe very fast, and even all continents of the world basically within weeks or months. So that is one of the issues, that it is very unpredictable, it's very rapid, and people aren't kind of prepared to deal with it. So the hospitals aren't ready. We don't have a current proper equipment, and we don't know how to treat it. So it is natural, and it is necessary to slow down it initially as much as possible, so that we could gather the right information and get the right data. But that train has already passed. So it's been far too long. We should have all the kind of information that we need to make the minimal effective kind of decisions. And I think it may be also the conflict of certain interests. It's very politicized. People are trying to push some kind of political agendas with it, and especially in terms of trying to root for a certain audience. So like the specific part of the population wants a certain response, whereas the other side wants a different response, and then the politicians and the governments are just trying to gain the approval of those particular people. So it's a very politicized, and like it's also easy to let's say get other things done with the pandemic. So there's like the Great Reset is an example of that. So it's a excuse of trying to quote unquote reset the global economy and change the capitalist system and implement like these different kinds of like global warming technologies and restrictions and all those things kind of fly under the radar and kind of sneak it in. So yeah, it's
like a Trojan horse a bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like and I think that in the future there's going to be a lot of this Trojan horse type of things, like that as a result of this pandemic, that people aren't going to they're not going to be able to travel that easily without a vaccine. Even if we do like get over this particular pandemic, the future of traveling is not going to be the same ever again. That there's never going to be like this unmasked or unvaccinated type of traveling, basically, I think.
Yeah, and what I think is a bit dangerous is that one authority can determine what is the right way to do things, especially when it comes to food, and especially when it comes to the body. It's a very innovative science, and there's a lot of research being done. But with the purging of certain voices who go against the norm and the conformity, even though, some things that we have now an opinion about cigarettes, about milk, about fats, it changes all the time. That one kind of monopoly could decide like, this is true science, this is fake science. And if you biohack and they don't agree or it doesn't align with certain interests, you're just removed because that's a quack and that's a quack. And they put everybody who has a different perspective in that, that's pseudoscience. Are you also afraid of this, or?
Of course, certainly. Like there are many things that aren't considered, that they don't fit like the mainstream narrative, but are still can be effective in terms of like your health and things. So like maybe intermittent fasting is an example of that, or like meat consumption is an example of that. All those things can be, although any you can achieve a very healthy, outcome on any kind of diet, on any kind of exercise routine. What matters is like, it's a very context dependent thing always. Like what matters is the particular individual and what are the current like other variables. But with this like this big, like if you're like a government and you have to make a decision of what kind of a diet do you recommend people to follow, then you have to not think about it from the perspective of an individual. So you have to think about it from the perspective of a collective. So you can't make very nuanced points if you're making these recommendations, because you're forced to kind of think about not only like that there's this big population that you have to take care of, but also like how are you going to be able to do it? So that is why like sometimes you have to think about, okay, even though like not only have to think about what kind of food is healthy, but it also like what kind of food is like sustainable, like what is gonna be the cheapest to produce, what is gonna be the easiest to do, and so the things. So you're not only thinking about what is healthy, you're also thinking about like the money and politics and those other things. So.
Yeah, I worked in healthcare in Belgium for about 8 years. And one of the sad things is that they don't invest enough in prevention, because then they can show the numbers, right? When you have a kind of symptom, then you can say like, we reduced it. And they always tackle things when there's a symptom or they have to solve a problem. But there could be a lot of things that would be prevented, or even changing lifestyle. Most of the illnesses right now are lifestyle illnesses. Even people who die now from corona, a lot of those are lifestyle related. But still, the government and people are not investing a lot of focus on prevention, right? Or a healthy lifestyle, which I think is partly what you also focus on.
Yeah, of course. Like the prevention is better than any medicine. So if you don't get sick in the first place, then it's much cheaper, it's much more healthier, and it's like more productive in general. But
what do you think is the reason that they're not having all these experts talk in schools? Or if you would be in Estonia on like an expert panel of the whole pandemic thing, we have a biohacker who knows how to optimize your body. We have a Wim Hof breathing expert who can make sure that you make your blood, alkaline and breathe better and calm your thoughts. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? It still is like in the fringes of like self-development junkies, but it's actually very useful, practical advice you could give people. And a lot of these things you could just immediately start implementing or buying buying in your supermarket or a specialized store, or do in the comfort of your own living room.
Yeah, well, I maybe the reason have to do with, I don't know, like not enough information, or I think it's just that people who are usually, let's say, in the fringes, they are not really interested in the politics or something. They're just doing it. They're just doing it for their own sake, so to say. They're doing it for themselves, and they may not have like the motivation or the desire to start to get involved on like a bigger scale. So that's probably one of the reasons. And then it's like, and then those spots get filled with people who aren't completely, dedicated to the actual science or the actual practice of it. So they're there to fill a spot and be there.
Most of the things that you do, because you're so consistent in what you put out, and you use a lot of research, right? You put a lot of quotes there. So a lot of things that you do is like evidence-based. Is that sometimes a problem in your niche? Like some people who just make up stuff or make up a fad diet or a fake system and not base it on actual evidence and science?
Yeah, of course, there's always people who are making things up and not backing it up with data. But it's becoming like more rare because of just the nature of internet, and people can fact check things themselves. And also there's like if someone does say something really outrageous, then there's always someone who kind of calls it out or debunks it. So it's harder to be pseudoscience nowadays. But of course, there's still a lot of people who are like gullible and or naive, and they don't have like the critical thinking, or they don't have like the background knowledge about how to question a particular thing. So it's always like a nuanced thing. So even if someone does say something like the best diet for like weight loss is to like lower your insulin and lower your carbs. So, okay, yes, maybe that can be a part of the solution, but you always have to think also that what would be the other situation where it isn't the case. So if you still eat too many calories, it doesn't matter how low your insulin is, you're still going to gain weight. So, and likewise, you can eat like a very low calorie diet, but if you have high insulin, you can still able to lose weight. So it's a matter of context, and it's never this black and white answers. It's more always it's more always a question of, if this, then that, like maybe, perhaps, those sort of things. Like I like to judge an expert or like an influencer based upon how assured or how confident they are on their statements. So if they're very like assured, they're very confident, they're like, yes, no, black and white, meat is good, meat is bad, plants are good, plants are bad, etc. If they're like this very die hard, very confident, and they're actually full of nonsense because they clearly they're trying to just persuade people to do something or to think in a certain way without seeing the nuance and without seeing the context of the situation. So and instead, like if an expert is saying like, yes, but maybe, perhaps, I don't know. Well, look at the research, like very, very like not sure and very
the standard.
Like,
it depends answer, right?
Yeah, it's like a vague answer, because you can't give a definite answer online within like a few characters. You always have to be very context and nuanced, and it always depends on the individual. So I see those kind of people who they appear to be less confident and less sure of themselves, more reliable and more accurate, because of they understand the context on the nuanced. Whereas the other are very confident people, very assured people, they usually I would look at them, okay, I have to actually challenge my own beliefs about this, instead of trying to believe this very confident answer. Because like us humans, we tend to gravitate towards confident people and confident narratives. Like if a leader or some speaker is very confident, we naturally think that confidence equals competence, because of if you're confident about something, then you must be sure and you must be true. Whereas like that's actually not the case. Like it's like an illusion. It's like the bird with a big feathers, like a big tail with a very colorful feathers and this big flushy.
They must have strong genes, because they
it's
expose themselves so much. Yeah,
it's an illusion. It's not like the actual case, and it's just a trick.
Yeah, I was a vegan for like a year and a half, and I tried it out, and now I'm like, let's say 80% vegan. Some people go into veganism and like it's almost like a belief, like now I don't have to check my blood or don't have to check like what I get. And I checked it, I make sure that my blood was good, but I felt a bit weaker, a bit less empowered. I didn't feel stronger because of veganism. I feel it's a good choice to eat like less meat out of certain virtuous causes or ethics. But then I started introducing like some meat and some fish, certainly like fish and some proteins, and that gave me like a balance. There is something about food and that lifestyle that always makes it like an ideology and almost like a religion. People are very protective when they make a certain lifestyle choice. It's like discussing politics, you know, like they get very defensive. Like with veganism, even I wasn't convincing everyone, because I think Lao Tzu said it, those who try to convince don't convince. You know, you best try to inspire them. And they were so vegangelical in what you should do. And I'm like, hey, if I could inspire someone to eat a bit less meat instead of like going completely vegan, that's fine. I made a little bit of an impact. What is it about people, their food choices, that makes it much more like almost religious or ideological?
Well, I think it doesn't apply just to food. It's also like in music, like there's, you know, growing up, there's always been like some conflict between like metal people and like trans people, so to say, but they're like opposing cultures and they don't like each other. So I think it's in everything. Like it's in politics and culture, in like video games, it's in like foods and all those things. So I think it's just a human nature that we want to identify with a particular tribe or a group, and everyone who is not in that tribe is just, you know, the enemy and deplorable or whatnot. So those are the ones we fight. So we tend to find like it's a problem, because it happens if we start to identify ourselves with the tribe or with the group. Like if we identify ourselves as a vegan, then like our entire, you know, narrative, our entire like self-identity is surrounded by what vegans do. Like like we eat plants, we don't eat meats, we don't wear leather, we, you know, et cetera, like all those things. We start to identify ourselves with that group, and we tend to then also want to act in accordance with the beliefs and values of that group. So we start to, even though we will start to do things that we ourselves wouldn't maybe do, but we would do it in a group because we consider ourselves to be a part of that group. So that's how like mobs work as well. Like one individual will probably never like punch a policeman, but if they were like in a riot and then there's the fight starts to break out, and then the entire mob, you know, starts fighting and those things. So yeah, like if you were to actually talk with them in person without like the group mentality, then that's why like people would get along with if they actually met in person. But online, those things get escalated faster, and like just gets into like this tribal conflict.
Yeah, that's super interesting to watch, I think, as an anthropologist, that you have this in-group, out-group behavior, and they're the enemies in this polarization. I mean, it's always been there, divide and conquer, one of the most important principles in politics or warfare, let's say. I feel that the last 5 years it had only like enhanced of all this tribal behavior and identity politics and polarization, lack of, I don't like political correctness. I like constructive discourse and using arguments and using principles. And you don't have to agree, but you can understand. But as an anthropologist, like this tribal behavior, this on a big level group behavior, and then on an individual level, like this unique me, my unique consumption, my unique customized iPhone. It's almost a crazy time where these ancient tribe dynamics are taking hold of the social sphere and the individual sphere and our society.
Yeah, like because they like social media, and because like these things target these primal parts of ourselves. They're not targeting like the self-aware and conscious part of our brain. They're targeting the primal brain of this dopamine rush and consumerism, and like getting this feeling of reward and the fighting thing. So it kind of hyper focuses on those things. So yeah, that's why I think that is. And part of it is also like these companies are taking advantage of it. So they don't want the people to stop fighting. They get, you know, more money. The more people engage with the content on the platforms, the more money they get. And that's why they're not really interested in, you know, trying to fix it or make it more user friendly.
Yeah, it's dopamine rush addicted systems that keep us enslaved. And it thrives on, maybe in the past you got validation or status from a compliment. Now you get it from a like or from a comment.
Right.
So it's almost like kind of an addiction. And then still people think like, no, I've thought rationally about this and it's totally common sense, but it's actually a lot of like hormones in their body and irrational and unconscious drives that take over. People are a lot more subconscious focus and conscious focus, primal focus than people actually believe that they are,
Yeah. Like I would imagine like 90% of the day we're all on like autopilots, or like we're driven by our subconscious mind, that we do things based on our like routines and habits, and we think like the similar thoughts, we eat at the same time, we get the same emotions around the same time. So, and very little do we have actually this conscious time where we're in the present moment and being fully in control of our kind of behavior and thoughts and emotions. Whereas at other times we either like reacting to something or getting triggered by whatever it may be.
I love to see your audience grow on like YouTube. You also have your social media following that you'll build up. I know you're much into like stoicism. How do you strike the balance between connecting to nature, biohacking, and making use of this social media? It's almost like in the beginning you have that bouncer at the door to respond instead of react. But nowadays I have to pay him like 5 times as much because he has to be on active duty all the time. So how do you, as someone who loves stoicism, loves the use of social media, maybe biotracking devices, but also still want to learn to be present and focus on your own zone of influence? How do you strike that balance, and do you find it challenging?
Well, at the moment I don't find it challenging. Like I'm not like addicted to social media, and I don't get drawn in by it that easily. So like I have like this habit where whenever I do notice that I've spent too much time on social media, then I'll automatically just put it away and do something else. So it is like a habitual skill, like a muscle that you develop. That the more mindful you are, then the easier it is to notice yourself and get away from it. And the way you build up it is with you do need to have like let's say like a semi restrictions initially. Like you need to have like some downtime from it, and maybe use it only for like, I don't know, 15 to an hour, or like 15 minutes to an hour every day, something like that, at specific times of the day. Because if you make it like ad libitum, basically, then you can get out of control. Like it's same with like intuitive eating. If you don't have any intuition, basically, or if your intuition is wrong, then ad libitum eating means that you're going to go obese and diabetic. So that's why you need to kind of build up your intuition first before you can trust it. Because like a lot of the time, like our intuition or like taste buds are also hijacked by like processed food and chemicals. So like the same with the social media and phones, that if your intuition about something is also misleading, then you shouldn't trust it. You need to first educate your intuition by things like meditation or journaling, like taking nature walks, just practicing any kind of like mindfulness practice. For me, it's easy to do because like I do writing every day, and it's very easy to me to get into the zone, and that kind of just teaches me to guide my attention and focus very easily. Like I can control my focus very easily and not get distracted.
Yes, kind of making things non-negotiable, right? So you don't have to use willpower because you're automatically pre-decided what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and then you don't have to spend any second thinking, what should I do, and then deciding, because that drains you, right?
Yeah. Like if you do have to force it, then it's gonna be hard, and you're gonna eventually break. Like if you're trying to hold back, basically, then it's gonna eventually explode. So that's why doing things like on a routine basis, like you do routine basis with meditation, you have habits for that, or you have routines for your social media or your exercise or whatnot. All those things develop this like a meta skill that it's a meta skill that is everything else you do is gets better because of it. Kind of it covers everything and improves your focus and willpower.
How do you leave room then for, because just as a diet, sometimes productivity or structuring the day has to do also with your type. If you like intuition, if you like structure, how do you allow flow, spontaneity, intuition, play in your life then? Do you schedule it?
Not really. Like depends on like where I'm at. Like if I'm in a point in time where I need to be productive, or I have a deadline or something that I want to reach, then I'm not going to do it, or I'm not going to schedule in some flow or something like that, or creativity, because I need to be achieve a certain goal. But at other times, if I'm at a point in time where I've any immediate project isn't like very immediate, it's been finished or something, then I'll take it slower. I'll just I don't know, engage in some more fun activities. So yeah, like it depends on where I'm at, but I'm not scheduling it. If it happens, it happens. But yeah, like I'm not also like very neurotic about it. So like if it does happen, like then I'll just go with it a little bit.
Do you believe in, or do you use setting goals or visualization, or are you more a routine and habit person, and then you just do them and you will inevitably reach the goal? What's your system to become consistent and reach a certain point or milestone?
Yeah, like if I were to set a goal, and then I wouldn't like pay attention to it that much. I would focus mostly on just the process itself, like just trying to get better at the process and get feedback from the routines that I do, and then adjust it based upon like what is needed. Like, do I need to change something or not? I don't have like these very multiple goals. Like I don't have any goals for like, okay, I'm going to want to gain this much muscle by the end of the month or something. And I don't want to, and I don't set like any goals that I have to earn a particular amount of income by the end of the year or something. I'm like more focused on the process itself. I do have like bigger goals, like, but they're not like short-term goals. They're more like long-term goals of, years and decades.
What's one of your biggest goals or dreams?
Maybe I do want to, let's say, start or be in part of like some sort of a education company type of thing, where we teach like, currently it is biohacking, but who knows what it's going to be in the future? Like maybe where we go past biohacking, we go straight into some like nanotechnology or something. But yeah, like education company about essentially human optimization and improvement.
Now we're delving into a topic that I'm super passionate about, the impact of technology on our lives. I have a quote that says, the danger is not for robots to become like humans. The danger is for humans to become like robots. How do you look at this, who's at the moment focusing on food, on the power of the human body, and then the progressing integration with technology? Are you excited about it? Are you a bit like both sides on it? Are you a bit scared of it? What's your point of view towards it at the moment?
Yeah, like we can definitely see the danger in both ways. Like at first, there's the danger that the robots are going to take over, or we're going to essentially become slaves in the Matrix type of scenario. But at the same time, there's also the inevitable fate that if we don't, implement more technology into our lives, and if we don't, become more like robots, then that kind of guarantees our own demise as well. Because I think the human species is very fragile, and we're living in a very chaotic world. And trying to stay human, trying to be this ape on this rock is going to be it's not very sustainable, or it's essentially guaranteed to fail, because there's been multiple extinction events on this planet, and they're probably going to happen again. So we're like a sitting duck here, basically. And I think technology is one of those ways that is essentially helps us to guarantee the survival of the human species, and even like all conscious life in the universe. Like I do think that there is like some other life forms out there, but chances are that there isn't. So if we are the only, let's say, conscious human or conscious life form in the universe on this planet, then we are like we're like basically ensuring the survival of all conscious life in the potential world. Because like if we get wiped out, then universe can go like dark.
When you say ape on a rock, What is something that you think like we can never give this up as humans because that makes us fundamentally human? When I would have to look at a half cyborg and ask like, is he still human? What are some things that you define as an anthropologist that seem lumped as this is actually essentially human and this has to be there?
Yeah, well, I think that's a hard question, and like no one has basically answered that. Like there are some things that make us human, like language, and social communication, and like theory of mind, which is the idea that I think that, yeah, like theory of mind might be one of those things that is currently considered to be uniquely human. One of the few things, like, which theory of mind means that you're aware that someone else has a mind. So like if your children are playing with, they think that the theory of mind develops around the age of 3 or something, like that around that time people or the children start to know that that other person has a mind similar to yours, and they kind of think in a similar way, but they're not you, they're like a different person. They think that chimpanzees have it, but they haven't proven yet. So yeah, like I think people are aware of this, that they're like uniquely there themselves, and they have like this their own consciousness. So the consciousness aspect is also very confusing, and it's not clear. But yeah, like the self-consciousness is, I think, the biggest thing, that we are aware that we are aware, that we know that we are this kind of a ghost basically in a shell that is operating, and we can see ourselves from this third person perspective. Like other animals, they have like similar types of consciousness, but I think it's not as like this meta, like probably elephants or dolphins, they don't probably know about the stars and the galaxies and those things. Or they're not aware of like time and history, which is another uniquely human kind of concept.
I think some people right now are not really aware of history.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a way also what Stoicism is a kind of defensive philosophy to regulate your emotions, to have more peace of mind. What if technology, and I'm challenging your thoughts here, like what if technology creates a kind of equilibrium, like the movie Equilibrium State, where you just regulate your emotions, because emotions can create great things, but they can also create like very horrible things. Like, what is your opinion about that? If that technology could regulate our emotions?
Yeah, well, it's like hard to know what a AI would think, so to say. Like we try to project our own human motivations onto the AI, so we think that the AI is going to become like this warlord who's going to take over and destroy everything, because that's what we would do.
It's the intro and endoskeleton, like also from your intro, right? It's from
right.
Terminator, right?
Yeah, like we think that the robots are going to be this very warmongering thing, because that is how humans act themselves. We we project our own emotions, but we have no idea what a super AI would think and how it would act. Maybe they would just go away, like who knows. And likewise, like maybe they would try to control our emotions in a way that make us like self-destruct, or maybe they start to change our emotions in a way that creates like world peace or whatnot. So I think like there's going to be probably in the future where you can just take some sort of a supplement or pill that changes your emotional state. Like you want to be more focused, there's already like caffeine and modafinil and things. You want to get more focused, you take this. You want to feel sleepy, calmed, you take this. You want to feel like dopamine, you want to feel oxytocin, the love hormone, then you take this one. There's already like this similar. They're very potent, but there's already out there. And I think, yeah, people are already in the future able to use these things. Yeah, like also some technologies, like some wrist straps or something that emit a certain frequency that changes your brain state and affects your emotions that way.
Yeah, it's a bit like the clockmaker of God, that he created things. Like it really comes down, and I know it's deep questions, but it's questions about what is right, what is wrong, what are ethics. It's kind of, on a minimal level, what they do right now with Facebook, with purging what can be said and what can be said and what is allowed and not allowed. It's like, what is humanity, what is not humanity. So you kind of have to program that robot, kind of like playing God and saying like, this is a right ethic and this is a wrong ethic. So you get into the religious domain,
Yeah, like, what is right, what is good and what is wrong. And yeah, like at the moment we would, like, if we had like the ability to like eradicate all suffering and all turmoil from the world. But then again, like, maybe there is like some lessons to be learned from those things, and maybe we'd like because like already people nowadays, even like, they're living in a very comfortable society. They have access to food, they have comforts, they have, you know, social media, PlayStations, and those things, but they're still kind of looking for some struggle. They're like either doing heavy workouts, they're doing CrossFit, or they're doing Spartan games, they're arguing with their family members, deliberately trying to fight a conflict because of they're bored, like they're trying to find this meaning. And a lot of, like, the vast majority of time from human history, the kind of suffering and struggle has been the meaning. So it's like the myth of Sisyphus from ancient Greek, that the Sisyphus is pushing this rock up in hell. He's pushing this rock up a hill, and whenever he gets to the top, the rock falls down again, and he has to start over again. So it's like this same kind of narrative with the human psyche as well. So we kind of need this small amount of suffering and struggle in order to feel as if it is real, or if it is something meaningful. Because if it's like too easy, then it's like we don't find this meaning or this purpose from it.
Yeah, and Albert Camus had the book The Myth of Sisyphus, that he says the meaning isn't just going through the process and then finding it meaningful. But I also find that sometimes we focus on meaningless things or meaningless struggles, because despite the fact that technology is progressing, fulfillment, meaning, happiness is not progressing.
Yeah.
So what is a meaningful, what is a fulfilling life? That also is a life where you deal with challenges and you learn from it. That's how we learn the most, through like suffering or hitting the wall and then start reflecting. So sometimes we're just optimizing, you know, on the top of the pyramid. Just, I know that you made a pyramid in the past, like, you know, sleep and food. And at the top is like the vitamins, right? And people think that the vitamins is going to completely, you know, make them healthy and make them optimal. So sometimes we're optimizing on the margin, but just the fundamentals of humanity, happiness, meaning, and fulfillment is not there.
Yeah. I think, like it is the result of this very comfortable society. So, you know, we have access to everything, and at the same time, we haven't replaced it with something, you know, with people are still, you know, stuck in the rat race, so to say. So we're not like that affluent yet. And like people are still, you know, financially struggling to a certain extent, and the system isn't equal, and the system isn't, you know, working as well as it could. And therefore it's, people are still, because of getting depressed and because of that. So I think it's a bug or something that needs to be fixed first.
Because you love also Anti-Fragility, right? Which is a book by Nassim Taleb about anti-fragility. Maybe you can explain the concept a bit, which is not the same as resilience.
Yeah, like anti-fragility is the opposite of fragility. So if fragile things break into pieces, then anti-fragile things get stronger from stress, and they grow and expand. So like anti-fragile things are usually, you know, some let's say, you know, the human body is anti-fragile. Like we stress it in some aspects, we get stronger physically as well as mentally, and even like the economy can be like anti-fragile in some time. But at other times it can be also very fragile. So if you have like these big bubbles, stock market bubbles, then it's very fragile. Like it's gonna just break into pieces soon. Whereas if something like that has a big, you know, upside, then that's like an anti-fragile thing.
Yeah, and another book by him is like the Black Swan. Certain events that don't happen a lot, but if they happen, it would have massive consequences, like what Corona is happening right now, the financial system. Then maybe anti-fragility is there for the people on top who just, at the moment, there's a whole GameStop thing where small people on Reddit, they bought things. So, you know, rich people went down in profit and they made profit. That, anti-fragile for the people who benefit from it. But for most people, the system doesn't get stronger. It just get atrophied and keep on being pushed towards at some point it will maybe collapse, you know?
We should have try to build a more anti-fragile society. So like currently it's very fragile. Like, we have nuclear weapons, which is very fragile. We have the global warming, which is, you know, fragile. Like asteroids, we can be hit like an asteroid, and even like just the internet and electricity, like the entire world can go out of power very easily because of like some solar flare or some, I don't know, other disaster. and like just the entire thing like stops working, like people will die because of not getting access to healthcare, and people go starving and those things. So it's a very fragile system that we have currently, and like we should try to make it more anti-fragile.
I know you do a lot of research, so I'm also interested about your opinion. What is your opinion about global warming and climate change? Nuance doesn't have to be black and white with the people who talk about the food. How much is because of humans, and how much is just the historical cycle or because of sunspots? I don't know if you delved into it a lot. Just interested in your opinion based on what you've seen.
Well, I think it's both. Like humans definitely contribute to it quite a lot, but I think also, like, if I'm not mistaken, then the temperatures have been as high. The average temperatures has been as high in the past already. Like in the Middle Ages, I believe, like the cycles tend to go, and like there's also been the coldest like winters within the past few decades as well. So it's not like this that is progressively getting hotter, and it's hotter than it's ever been before, and it's about to explode. So it's definitely been hotter in the past, and this has also been colder in the past, and it's probably gonna get colder in the future as well in some time. But yeah, I think that it's because it doesn't have to be like a huge change for it to have like a massive negative effect on like coastal regions can be wiped out because of even just a little bit of the Arctic ice melting and things like that. So there's going to be definitely a lot of damage to the economy and people as a result of that. So we should still want to get some like a more sustainable energy source, more regenerative energy source. We should do it regardless of whether there would be like a global warming or not. We should do it regardless of that, because it's a more anti-fragile system. It's more sustainable, and it's more like more like suitable to the environment. So we can use the environment in a better way. At the same time, like also like if we were to go this route where we stopped using all oil immediately, we went all green, then that would be also like a suicide because we don't have like where our technology isn't that advanced to get away with it. Like we wouldn't, our like productivity and resourcefulness would drop quite a lot because oil is cheap and it's much more effective at the moment than green energy sources. So there's you can make the argument that like if we were to like abuse and exploit the current like very bad for the environment fuels, gas and oils, but we would accelerate the development of technology with it, and we would reach this green power much faster if we were to exploit the system as much as possible. Then we would reach this green state faster if we were compared to where we would start off with this like less advanced technology of the green power. And we would try to reach that. We would get there much slower because our we start off from a lower footing, and we start off from less resources and less productivity. So if we were to I think we should use the power and the energy that we have currently to accelerate this development towards these greener technologies. Because if we went green immediately, then we would just become very unproductive, basically.
Or maybe everything goes in cycles, and then we humans are terrible at learning from our mistakes, and then we destroy the planet, or it goes really bad that we become an interplanetary species and go to another planet and maybe learn from that. And then, your grandchild says like, what happened? Well, back in the planet, humans were like this and we did this, and then it's another phase in the evolution to go to other planets. What's your opinion about it?
Well, I think we should definitely that should be like one of the priorities of what we do at the moment. Like we should become interplanetary species as fast as possible, because like I said, we're like a sitting duck here, basically. Like this is the only known colony of humans and conscious life forms that we know of, and as we know, like the Earth itself, even if it's not global warming, then it can be just the sun exploding itself. It's going to eventually do it. So we should find a way to create at least like a second home base as fast as possible, so to say. And even if it means, abusing the planet a little bit or, causing harm to it and things, then I think it may be justified. Because I also think that with technology in the future, we can repair basically everything. Like we can create our own planets, and we can repair the planets and heal the planets with the technology that we will have in the future. But in order to reach that technology, then we need to, work a lot, and we need to be very resourceful and figure out and become like very, scientific and things.
And then you time travel and come back to the planet with a white robe and a white orb in your hands. Like, I have the omnibus. I have, the secret to save the planet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how like Interstellar works.
For people now, like, to give them like basic advice, like, hey, if you want to boost your immune system, if you want to, with everything that's going on, to make sure that you stay healthy, besides the basics, like, let's say, sleep, movement, exercise, what are some supplements, foods, things that most people could take that would actually benefit them a lot? If you would have to give them advice on the most basic level that would apply to the most people.
I think, well, they're all like the key nutrients that you do need for the immune system, and most people aren't getting enough of, which would be like vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, and selenium. I think those would be the 4 big ones. And first, how do you get, or you should get your vitamin D status checked, so to say. And the optimal reference range for vitamin D is about like 60 to 70 nanograms per deciliter, or 100 to 150 nanomoles per liter, I think. That will be the optimal range for that. Less than that is going to drastically increase the risk of, or the severity of COVID-19 infections. For magnesium, like, most people also need magnesium, not because of the immune system, but also just the other, like, stress and like insulin resistance and diabetes type of things. So that is important. Like about 50 to 70% of the people aren't getting the RDA, which would be about like 400 to 450 milligrams per day. And for that, like, you probably need to take like some magnesium supplement, because most magnesium foods are like low in magnesium, or it's depleted because of like soil erosion. With zinc and selenium, like, you could take like a zinc supplement, but taking it too much can also have like some bad effects. So trying to eat more zinc foods, like seafood tends to be the highest in zinc. And for selenium, like, you can get the selenium you need by eating like a few Brazil nuts a day, or some legumes and beans, and even like animal foods.
What's your opinion as a biohacker towards the vaccine, and towards like healthy people taking the vaccine to become immune to the virus?
Well, I think like, well, most people are probably end up kind of getting it, like at least a certain percentage. So to reach this like a herd immunity phenomenon, whether or not you like need to take it, I don't know, but it's gonna at least, or like, we don't even know if it's gonna work, or if it's gonna work in like in the future strains. So it's probably the virus itself is going to probably mutate and change. So we don't know if the vaccine is going to work for that. So we're going to have to just wait and see. Like, I don't think that you need to go like run out and get it. Like, maybe you do if you're like, let's say, in the smaller risk group, then you don't need to run out and get it, unless you're like really afraid or something. But the biggest people who should get it would be like, the elderly, because their own immune system tends to be like less robust, or people who have these comorbidities like obesity, diabetes, hypertension, metabolic syndrome. So for them, I don't think like the vaccine is gonna like kill you or something. I think it's I think it's just gonna be, the question should be like whether or not it's gonna just work or not, because I think it's safe, but I think it's whether or not it's gonna work. Yeah, that's the biggest issue.
I'm on for free choice, and people can take it if they want. I'm just using the same logic that we have been using for years. Like you said, the Spanish flu, like we still don't have something against it. HIV, it's also a virus. We don't have anything against it. Normally it takes 9, 10 years, 15 years to develop a vaccine. And normally you use it for only the vulnerable people, and other people get herd immunity by developing antibodies. So I'm just using the same method as we have been using in reasoning for like years, but it seems that now how they treat it, how they approach it is like different than in the past. That's a bit how I look at it. And I found it strange. Even the WHO changed the definition of like herd immunity on their site, like a month and a half ago. So I think that's just pretty dangerous. And else, take it and use common sense. But
like I said, it's just because they're afraid to take responsibility and they're afraid of people dying, so they don't want, because there's been like this very huge uproar and all this stories about the virus itself is basically the biggest story in the world for the last year, and the people are just hyper focused about it, and they're seeing the numbers ticking and that sort of thing. So the governments feel the pressure from the people, and they want to they don't want to be blamed, basically. So they'll do the more like responsible thing, like we should do the responsible thing of locking things down, and like even though we do sacrifice the economy and things, we'll try to prevent the deaths and we'll do the vaccine and those things. They're just trying to do the right thing in their eyes, but they don't they don't see the downstream consequences of that, and they don't, or at least they don't want to acknowledge it. They're just doing what the PR expects them to do.
That cartwheel problem where people have to decide if people are going to get killed by a train, and if they just switch the lever, less people can get killed. But most people don't do it because they don't want to be responsible for killing people, even if it's less people. Well, it's the same problem. They want to decide that some people should die for like a long term, or living with it, because they don't want to be personally responsible, even though that may be lifestyle related diseases, which are still one of the biggest, death causes ever, that they don't want to be responsible for it. And I just think imagine that they would have the same way of treating it when they would talk about lifestyle illness or unhealthy eating or smoking or all these things. Like, you could also save so many lives, not discounting the ones that happened by Corona, but just like a holistic approach and think like, how can we handle this responsibly and also in the long term becoming more anti-fragile or more robust. So that frustrates me a little bit, the approach of this whole crisis.
Yeah, like the vaccine is also like a fragile approach. So you're using the vaccine, but you're not fixing the root cause of the issue, which is like the poor health of the entire population and that sort of thing, and the like weak ecosystem or the fragile infrastructure. So if you fix those things, then it will be more anti-fragile as a result.
One of the mistakes that you say people make is that the biggest cause of death is aging. What do you feel is the biggest cause of death in people?
Well, we're all going to die, in the sense that they're just being born.
Life is an incurable disease. Yeah.
So, well, I think just the kind of living the hedonic lifestyle, maybe or living the overnourished lifestyle would be a better way of saying. So, because like just overfeeding and eating like the bad junk food, I think is the biggest just thing that over the course of entire lifetime is gonna catch up on you and does like accelerate things in terms of aging.
Maybe you can talk a bit about metabolic autophagy or intermittent fasting, which is a bit like restricting food and eating less and you become healthier. Some people will listen like, huh, what?
Yeah, well, the intermittent fasting is a way to like help to achieve like a calorie deficit, and research does find that eating a little bit less calories is helps to live longer and slows down the onset of diseases. Intermittent fasting like mimics that, so you don't need to necessarily starve basically to get the same effect. So you can even like studies when they do on mice and some people that eating the same amount of calories, but you do it in a smaller time frame, like achieves a similar results as calorie restriction. And it's also like somewhat more convenient for a lot of people. So you don't have to, eat several times a day, but you still get to eat like larger meals. So you don't feel as if you're starving yourself. And it's good for like weight loss. It's good for diabetes and metabolic syndrome. It's good for even like the brain, helps with it protects against like neurodegeneration. And that's essentially it. Like the intermittent fasting is just eating within a small time frame, like once or twice a day instead of 4 or 6 times a day.
Is the most basic advice, and sorry to butcher all your teaching, check out this channel where you can check a lot of videos about this. Is it mostly like OMAD, 1 meal a day, and then like not eat for like 16 hours or a 16-hour time window, like on the most basic level, to explain people how it works?
Yeah, the most popular method of doing it is like fasting for 16 hours and you eat within 8 hours. So usually it would mean like that you skip breakfast and you eat only lunch and dinner.
And let's talk a little bit about coffee. I know you made videos about it and people love coffee. In the end, is it more beneficial or more detrimental? Coffee. You live in a coffee nation. Scandinavians love their coffee. I know. Is coffee actually a good thing to take in general, or is it more like an extra supplement to boost you and give you some extra energy?
I think the research does find that coffee has quite a lot of health benefits, and it improves diabetes. It like protects against liver cancer, Alzheimer's, and metabolic syndrome. Helps with weight loss. Helps with energy exercise performance. So yeah, it does have like a huge beneficial effect on the body, and there's like very little to no side effects actually. So like usually people who say that that it's bad for you and that it's harmful for you, that's not actually like, of course you can definitely overdose on caffeine and die, but that usually happens if you take like a caffeine supplement or a pill. So it's hard to like overdose on drinking caffeine because you're just gonna explode, or you feel awful doing that. It does maybe raise your blood pressure if you have like blood pressure issues. But for that, again, like you would have to drink, like maybe 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day. If you drink only like 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day, then it's fine and it's actually very healthy. And like usually people get like jittery and anxious and sleeping problems if they drink too much, 3 or 4 or 5 cups, or if they're like very sensitive to caffeine. So there's also a difference between people, like genetic difference, that some people are fast metabolizers, which means that they burn through it very fast, and they don't get any of the negative side effects. And there's other who are slow metabolizers who burn through it slower, and they stay like awake for longer, and then they can easily overdose on caffeine more easily. So there's some difference between people, but generally it's quite healthy and not harmful.
I've been following you for like 3 years. I think you also were a follower of Elliot Hulse back in the days, and he had this non-job community, and we started like growing. You build up like a big YouTube following. You have a lot of podcasts. At the end, like tell where people can find out more about your social media channels. What have you learned from building your following and from being like consistent and building it up and getting better and better guests? Is there anything that you learned from this whole process of putting yourself out there?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed was that usually people respond the best to like a particular problem that they have or something that they search for. So, there's always different types of trends going on in society, or that get more attention than others. Like, 2 years ago or something, it was, this autophagy thing, which was when I released my autophagy book. And that's when I saw like the biggest growth as well as a result of that. And even like 4 years ago, it was like ketosis when it was first came around. So I was on that train as well, and kind of saw like a good boost from that. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of spot the trends a little bit and give people what they want. So to say that people want to get the information about how does it work, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to kind of give them what they want in a particular moment. Like nowadays, it's or let's say like over the past year, it's been like the carnivore diet and things. People are eating a lot of meat and things. So it's always, there's different trends going on. And you can also see that people who are getting the most attention on social media are usually the ones who are on that train, trend train, because they're, gaining a lot. People are very excited to learn about this particular topic at the moment. And then there's people providing that topic because they're either an expert on it or they're just taking advantage of it. So in either way, like it's a matter of trying to provide like some sort of a service to other people that the people want to learn from and gain information.
For a young guy sitting now, overweight, gaming, smoking a joint, playing video games in his couch, and then he listens to this interview, and you could give like a message for him to get started or what to start with, what advice would you give someone who's a bit at a low point but they want to start improving their body and their mind, because you're about body mind empowerment? What would be the starting point, you would say?
Maybe like setting some or challenging yourself in some way, like taking up some challenge, like like a 30-day weight loss challenge or a 30-day carnivore challenge or something, whatever it may be, like a 30-day meditation challenge. All those things just help you to keep more accountable, because like initially the biggest hurdle is not being accountable and not being able to change your habits and routines. So if you have like a bigger goal or some challenge, then you're more motivated to get up and to get after it.
How was the Simulant like 20 years ago? Was you already like a willpower, motivated, consistent, productive person? Or were there also some lazy elements in you or unfocused elements in you?
Well, I wasn't like, particularly lazy, so to say. Like I've always been always like my parents, grew up in a way that, work hard and that sort of mentality. Mm-hmm. And so I've never been like someone who just takes things for granted or something. But I've always been like somewhat of a dreamer or a daydreamer type of person in the past. So that's something that I'm glad that I changed a little bit. So that instead of being just a daydreamer, I'm also like taking action on those dreams and things.
If people want to find out more about biohacking, stoicism, evolution, all your great insights, the project that you're going to do in the future with educating children and future generations, where can they find out more about you and all your great work?
Yeah, well, my YouTube channel is Siimland. My website is siimland.com. And the other platforms are also Siimland.
And it is Siimland with 2 eyes, not 1 eye. Check it out. Siimland, awesome to have you on the podcast. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. And if you're a coach or consultant and you want to scale your online business or maximize your productivity, check out the show notes to find out more about Philip and his coaching programs. Rent over.